There's just tremendous amount of heart disease in my family, both sides of my family. And I thought, all right, so at 25, I'm going to be middle-aged. Looks like I'll die at 50 if I eat the way these people eat. I was in my mid 30s and I started getting chest pains. If I eat too many bananas, especially if they're very ripe bananas, too much fructose, my cholesterol will go up. I didn't know that was possible, that you could live on water and fruit juices for a year and a half to destroy the planet in order to give yourself a heart attack is a little bit too stupid for me to put up with. If you're not vegan now, please go vegan because it's really the only way to save our planet.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Health Show here. And we have a guest on today. This is Glen Merzer. And we're going to hear some great information today. So before we get started, Glen, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Paul. My pleasure.
Glen, before we get started, can you briefly introduce yourself to the audience?
Well, I began my first career was as a playwright. I'm still a playwright and a screenwriter. But I've been a vegetarian since I was 17 and been a vegan since I was in my mid 30s and began being part of the plant-based food movement when I co-authored Howard Lyman's book, Mad Cowboy. And then Howard and I did a follow-up book called No More Bull. Then I started co-authoring books by Chef AJ and writing my own books on the vegan diet and a book on climate called Food is Climate. So I've been, gradually getting more and more involved in this movement.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you for being here. You've written 15 books.
Wrote or co-authored.
Wrote a co-author. Okay. So let's get back to the beginning. When you were growing up in New York, were you into health at all? Did your family say don't eat animals, or were you just eating the standard American diet, not even thinking about it?
I think I always cared about health because I remember being a little boy saying to my mother, "Boy, we had such a healthy breakfast this morning. I had two scrambled eggs and whole wheat toast and orange juice and a multivitamin. You know, wasn't really a healthy breakfast, but to me, the idea was to eat things like whole wheat toast." And I was told eggs were healthy and so forth. So I cared about health, even though obviously I was not getting myself healthy.
So how old were you when you made a connection between, or well, what was it that made you make that connection between animals and food?
Well, when I was 16, two of my uncles died. One was in his 40s, late 40s, one was in his 50s. And around the same time, my mother started getting heart disease. And I never knew my grandparents because they were dead before I was born. So, I realized there's just tremendous amount of heart disease in my family, both sides of my family. And I thought, all right, so at 25, I'm going to be middle-aged. Looks like I'll die at 50 if I eat the way these people eat. So I don't remember how I knew that meat is a leading cause of heart disease, but I think it was nothing exceptional. I think most people knew it. Even back then, I think it was fairly common knowledge that a cheeseburger isn't good for your heart. So I decided that I would become a vegetarian on the first day of summer vacation after my junior year in high school. So at 17, I became a vegetarian. That day I had an English muffin for breakfast, and that was it. I knew I would never have meat again. And but how many years later? Maybe about 19 years later, I was in my mid 30s and I started getting chest pains. And I thought, oh man, this is unfair. I've been a vegetarian since I'm 17, and now I've got these terrible genes, and I'm going to get heart disease in my 30s. But I didn't go to the doctor. I just thought about it. I thought, well, I'm not eating meat because of saturated fat and cholesterol, but because I had been stupidly accepting the idea that I had to get enough protein, I'd been eating cheese. And it was the cheese that was causing my heart problems. So I just gave up cheese and became a vegan. I think it was around the age of 30, 35, 36. And I haven't had any pains since then.
How old are you now?
I'm 68.
Six. So how many years would that be vegan? 30,
30, let's see, about 32 years.
32 years. Okay. So when you first went vegetarian in high school,
Yeah.
did you have any knowledge of it, or did you just know I'm just going to stop eating meat? Because, there are junk food vegetarians, there are healthy vegetarians. What do you do? Did you just dive into it
Yeah,
with the research?
I can't, I don't remember reading any books on health. I remember listening to the comedian Dick Gregory, and he was an advocate of the vegan diet. I don't remember if he was an advocate of the vegetarian diet. I don't remember if he was vegan. I think so. And he also fasted against the war in Vietnam. And I had seen him speak in my hometown when he had been fasting for something like a year and a half against the war in Vietnam. And he was under 100 pounds. And he was running 6 miles a day, drinking just water and fruit juices. And I didn't know that was possible, that you could live on water and fruit juices for a year and a half and run 6 miles a day, which is more than I've ever run in my life. And so he was just a remarkable guy, but even more remarkable than that, when the war in Vietnam ended, he held a press conference and he was asked, Mr. Gregory, would you fast again if America got involved in another Vietnam? And he said, I wouldn't fast again if they were fighting in my living room. So, the guy just had a great sense of humor and, it was something of a hero of mine growing up.
Yes, I actually got to meet him, and it was
Did you?
really. And I'm connected with Hippocrates Health Institute, and
Uh-huh.
I met him through an event that they did, and it was really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love his books and his story. Great. So, okay, so you didn't know how to do a vegetarian diet, but you did it, but you continue to consume cheese. Did you eat
Mhm.
eggs and
No,
milk, or
only
just
cheese was my only animal product.
okay, so cheese. So then you realize, well, I got to change. Then you go vegan. Now, when you went vegan, did you research it, or did you just stop eating cheese?
Um, for the most part, I think I just stopped eating cheese. I mean, I don't remember, I probably would read magazine articles and, I was interested in health, but not to the point where I could say I studied health until a year or two after that. I started working with Howard Lyman on Mad Cowboy. And that's when I turned into something of a self-styled researcher on the subject.
Sure. So so when you first did this at 16, going vegetarian,
Yeah, 17. Yeah,
17, I assume you're a single guy in high school. So
you're right.
when you got older, did you get married before
I
you
got
went vegan?
married.
So when you got married, you weren't vegan yet, correct?
No, I was vegan because I got married late. I got married at the age of 40.
Okay, okay. So you're already vegan.
Yeah.
Is so when you met your wife, you're vegan. Is your wife vegan?
She is now. When I met her, she was not yet vegetarian, but she was open to becoming vegetarian. When we got married, she went vegetarian, and about a year later, she went vegan.
What was her reasoning for it?
Well, Joanna has always been interested in health, and she had always been an advocate of herbs and knew about the healing properties of herbs. So I think it was a natural fit for her to see, yeah, a diet of plants is healthier. And it was maybe a bit much for her to go from consuming animal products to immediately vegan. So she eased into it by having not too much cheese, but a little bit of cheese the first year of our marriage.
A lot of people I meet that are vegans have a hard time. Most of them switch when they're married and they have a hard time with their spouse consuming meat. And you uniquely, you found a wife who wasn't a vegan.
Yeah.
Uh, did that did that matter at all to you at all, or was it something you considered?
Well, all I can say is if all vegans would do that, we could double the number of vegans. And and if you have more than one spouse, we could triple the number. So it worked out fine for me. I got lucky, I guess.
And do you have children?
No children.
Okay. Okay. So after doing the vegan diet for a long time, your health improves. Do you ever go to the doctor for a checkup or do you do blood work?
Yes, I do blood work. Yeah.
Okay. And how's your blood work been over the years? Ever an issue?
Yes, in that, remember, there's a lot of heart disease in my family. My family manufactures cholesterol at a high rate. So if I even stay on a vegan diet, but go to restaurants and have oily food, my cholesterol is going to go over 200. Even if I eat nuts to a large degree, and nuts I think of as a healthy food, I want to ask you, I'm guessing on a raw food diet, you eat a fair amount of nuts. If I eat a lot of nuts, my cholesterol is going to go over 200. If I eat a lot of avocados, my cholesterol is going to go over 200. For some reason, if I eat fatty foods, my cholesterol goes up. And even if I eat too many bananas, especially if they're very ripe bananas, too much fructose, my cholesterol will go up. Now, here's the interesting question that I don't think either of us can give a definite answer to. But let's say for a couple of weeks, I eat a lot of ripe bananas and avocados and nuts, and I get my cholesterol up to 220. And maybe my LDL goes up to 120 or 130. The question is, how much does that matter? Am I at risk? Remember, there is an association between cholesterol, and particularly LDL cholesterol, and heart disease. But also, when you eat meat, you get a lot of cholesterol, and it's particularly oxidized cholesterol because that meat is cooked. So that meat's going to kill you or has a good chance of killing you. And that's the association between cholesterol and heart disease from meat. It's really the meat that's killing you or the cheese, not necessarily the cholesterol. So if I get my cholesterol up with healthier foods, with nuts, avocado, bananas, somehow I doubt it's going to kill me with a heart attack. At the same time, I don't like having my cholesterol be over 200 and my LDL over 100 and so forth. So I just watch my consumption of nuts, avocados, and too many bananas or dried fruit with the fructose. But I try not to get, excuse me, get paranoid about it because I don't really think I'm going to get killed by a banana.
Now, what when we look at that, where are your triglycerides and your HDL?
My HDL has always been fairly low, 40-ish or under. And my triglycerides, I think usually in the range of 100.
Okay. And do you ever get your CRP checked, your C-reactive protein?
Yes, and 0.28.
Interesting. So,
So
yeah,
low inflammation. You see, I think inflammation trumps cholesterol. Tell me what you think. But I think if you got low inflammation in your body, I would rather have
I think
CRP of 0.28 with a cholesterol of 200 than a high CRP with a 180.
I think that's a good sign that it's not oxidized cholesterol
Right.
if the CRP is low.
Right. And how
So
could it be oxidized cholesterol? I'm not cooking my bananas.
I'm in agreement with you, but I'm also like you, even though it's most likely not an issue, you just feel better not having it that high. I get it,
Right. Yeah.
especially with the history in your family. So
Yeah.
I get it. So when you say if you eat too much fructose or too much fats, uh, what's too much? Give us an example of your diet when you're watching it and when you're not. So give us an example.
Well, it was a few months ago, I got really scared because I got one of my higher reports with cholesterol of about 200 and LDL, which was really what concerned me, 135. So I said, that does it for the next 3 weeks. I'm going to be really strict. Didn't have a single banana, didn't have a single raisin, and didn't have anything fatty. 3 weeks later, cholesterol went from 200 to 154, I think. LDL from 135 to 94. So I can control it. Then I started having a banana a day, and I try not to let it be an overly ripe banana. But I think if I have 2 or 3 bananas a day and they're more ripe, I get in trouble in terms of the numbers. Whether it's really bad for my health, I don't know. But in terms of the numbers, if I have 2 or 3 bananas a day, not good for me. If I have a lot of avocado, not good for me. If I have a lot of nuts, not good for my numbers.
Sure. And you would think that there's based on that, there's a connection between fructose and cholesterol. But and I would come to the same conclusion based on what you say, but I know people that say they're fruitarians and then they show their blood test and they don't have high LDL. So I don't know if some hereditary is involved in it or not, but it's very interesting that some
Yeah,
people can eat avocados and all stuff all day long and not have high cholesterol, but
yeah.
others,
There's a genetic component for sure.
yes,
And again, this isn't oxidized cholesterol we're talking about.
sure. Now, how tall are you and how much do you weigh?
5'8", about 140.
Okay, that's great. And okay, so here you are a vegan, you're improving your health, and what made you become an advocate of it, like to get the word out about it? What was it that pushed you to do that?
Yeah, when I first became a vegetarian at 17 and then a vegan in my mid 30s, I really wasn't concerned with what other people ate. And I know that a lot of people who become vegetarians and vegans do so for the animals. And I happen to agree with these people. I happen to abhor how we treat animals. It's just that I was never willing to make that case to people. I have so many people I love who eat animals, and I'm not willing to say to them, you're murdering animals. It's cruel. I find the animal agriculture industry abhorrent and how they treat animals abhorrent. Maybe selfishly, I don't know. I just didn't want to offend my friends. And so my attitude was always, well, you do you eat the way you want. I'm just doing this so I don't get heart disease. And I found that a lot of meat eaters, if they asked me why I was a vegetarian, and I said, well, there's a lot of heart disease in my family, so I'm just doing it for that reason, they were much more accepting. They didn't feel that I was a, preachy vegetarian or a preachy vegan because I was just doing it for myself. And that was always my attitude, as much as I agreed with the animal rights activists in terms of how cruel it is to the animals. I just didn't make the case. Um, but then when I discovered while working on the book Mad Cowboy with Howard Lyman, how bad it is for the environment, it's the leading cause of water pollution. It's the leading cause of greenhouse gases in the environment. It's fouling our rivers and streams and burning the land and causing deforestation and biodiversity loss. When I realized all those things, I started to feel, you know what? If you want to destroy your own health, that's your own business. But to destroy the planet, to destroy the planet in order to give yourself a heart attack is a little bit too stupid for me to put up with. So I started speaking out about it and, making the case as many ways as as I could. And there's always that line you try to navigate of how to do it without offending people too much or alienating people or isolating yourself. But that's our dilemma as people who eat human food while other people don't.
Sure, sure. So Howard Lyman, for those of you that don't know, is a was a cattle rancher who uh, got really sick and found out the connection between eating meat and not, and he decided to denounce eating meat and really was strong advocate for not no longer eating meat, and this was a big change for him. So how did you meet him? And yeah, how'd you meet him?
I had heard Howard speak on my own, but I was introduced to him by a mutual friend at Real Food Daily in Los Angeles, and they were pitching the idea of my writing a movie about his story. And I did eventually write a screenplay about his story, but at the time said I just don't see this as a film because I can't. The arc of his life is that he went, as you said, from being a cattle rancher to being a vegan and animal rights activist. But I was trying to think, where's the third act ending when he orders the stir-fried veggies? I couldn't see the drama in it. So I said, I just can't see it as a screenplay. And our mutual friend said, well, then how about a book? And I said, well, I've never written a book, but I could try. And that became the book Mad Cowboy.
So were you a screenwriter at the time?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Well, that book created a lot of drama. So a lot of drama because somehow a lady named Oprah Winfrey got hold of it, and it became a big situation because they claim that the book hurt the people that were selling animal meat. And
Well, you got it a little wrong, Paul.
okay, okay,
Before the
tell.
book was written, Howard was a guest on her show,
Okay.
along with a spokesman for animal for cattle ranchers or some animal agriculture group. And Howard talked about how we were at risk of mad cow disease, which was then happening at a high rate in Britain. And Oprah said, that does it. I'm not going to ever have another burger. And some, in my opinion, deranged cattle ranchers in Texas felt that she didn't have a right to say, I'm never going to have another burger. And that statement had caused beef futures to plunge. So they sued her and Howard. And it became a lawsuit in which she hired the then unknown Dr. Phil to be her jury consultant. Um, and um, and then Howard and Oprah were vindicated that they were found not liable for defaming the meat industry. The negative thing that came of all that was that Dr. Phil became famous. So, it wasn't
And
all
he
good.
didn't become a vegan.
Yeah.
Okay. So uh wow, wow. So here you are. So that was before the book came out.
Yes, I was writing the book during the trial.
Now when that was going on, is that something that was added to the book, the information or
Yes.
oh it was. Okay. Okay. So then from there you started to co-author and then author other books for this, and you're feeling great, you're getting the word out, and I'm sure meeting a lot of people that have given up meat and getting better.
Yeah.
Uh, no. Let me ask you, in your personal diet, do you take supplements?
I take B12 and D3. How
Okay.
about you?
Oh, me, I'm a different story. I was sick when Went to Hippocrates Health Institute, became a vegan, and I'm been on a all 100% raw vegan diet for a long time. I do take a D3, a K2, B12 occasionally, and I take astaxanthin. Astaxanthin's wonderful, and
I
yeah.
don't. I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah, Astaxanthin is by a company called Valasta. And well, there's many different kinds and many of them are garbage, but this one, what happened was I work with a lot of people. My passion is helping people that are sick with diseases and I want them to, get better. So I talk about diet and other things they could do, but I noticed people with cancer and other diseases, this is a highly anti-inflammatory thing. The only animals in nature that don't get cancer have this in their environment. It's an algae from lakes and streams. So I started doing research, and most of the astaxanthin out there is garbage, but because it's not really absorbable. But the guy that made this company called Valasta found out a way to hook up the astaxanthin to glucose, so it gets into the cells because the body wants those glucose, and it makes it very absorbable. And so I would give it to my clients, and their numbers are coming on, their CRP's coming down tremendously. That's how I prove to them it's working. With cancer and arthritis, their pain's going away. So after doing that, so uh, now I have so many testimonies from it.
So,
So
so what is this? What kind of molecule is this with the, it's from algae, you said?
Well, astaxanthin itself is an algae. It
It
protects.
is an algae.
It's a
There.
red algae, and it protects lakes and streams from the environment. And so that's a red algae. Yeah, so that's
And
what.
so they're getting fatty acids from this? What are they
No,
getting
no,
from
it's
this?
not an omega-3 fatty acids.
So
That's
what
not
do
in
you
it.
get from it?
Oh, there's tons of, I'll tell you right now, it has like tremendous amounts of vitamin C. It has more anti-inflammatory capabilities than turmeric even. And there's just a ton of vitamin A from it. But the major thing about it is the anti-inflammatory properties of it. And for years. I mean, the person that told me about it is somebody who's been a raw vegan for over 60 years, Dr. Fred Bishy, and he's been using it in his practice for a long time, and it's been helping
Mhm.
people. I actually gave it to a friend of mine whose wife had cancer, and she started taking it, and she had good results. She passed away, and I spoke to him, and he said, "Paul, I wish I would have known about this sooner because everything she was doing, this is the one thing I know that worked, and she just started it too late." So
Mm.
that's how I got into it. So I take it. I don't have major illnesses, but I just take it as a
So you believe it's a cancer fighting
100%, 100%. I got
for
testimonials
people
to
who
back it up.
already have cancer?
100%. I've testimonials to back it up. It's amazing, and it's preventative as well.
So
So
you have seen cancers disappear?
I've seen the numbers go down. I've seen people CRP go from super high all the way down. I have testimonies of people that since it's anti-inflammatory, people with things like arthritis and things like this, they're taking this and their pain's going away. They said they had trouble walking for years, and now they're
Uh-huh.
jogging and running. Uh,
Uh-huh.
After the interview, I'll send you a video or two of the testimonials I have from people doing this. And this isn't like an infomercial where people are on television. This is people I personally work with and know, and it's really amazing.
All right. So
So
you've been raw vegan for 30 years?
30 years, 30 years.
The potatoes don't taste as good that way, do they?
I actually, that's one of the most addictive foods on the planet, the potatoes. But I just don't like being sick. I had ulcerative colitis when I was 19. I don't
Right.
like being sick. And I tried one time in those 30 years to go back to cook food and I started to feel sick again. So I got off it and feel amazing and doing amazing yeah. So
Well,
it's
this raises the obvious question, if I may ask, what happened more recently, your last cooked food or your last close shave?
well, I'm so busy getting the word out about health that I don't have time to shave.
I see. Okay.
Yes. So it's people need to do better health wise on any level. I don't advocate that people need to be 100% raw, but they definitely need to have a lot of raw food in their diets.
Hmm.
Even if somebody, I prefer them to give up animal products, but if for some reason in their mind they can't see it to be true, I said, well, and I give them the changes they can make, and they start seeing improvement, and then they come back and say, well, what else can I do? And eventually, they'll get off the animals. But yeah, and it's the hardest thing, and you would know this too, because that's going to be my next question to you. The people closest to you, because for me, the people closest to me, you know, my thankfully my wife is on board, but the people closest to me in terms of my siblings, they don't want to hear it. My closest friends, they don't want to hear about it, and they're getting sick. And do you have that issue like
Yep.
people? Yeah. They don't they love the meat, but they think the meat is healthy. Like they just don't get it because of all those bad media out there.
Right. And also painful are the people who say, "Yeah, Glenn, I know you're right, but it's just hard to do and my wife doesn't cook like this." And they just kind of are casual about it, and then they tell me that they're having surgery or something for something utterly preventable.
Yeah, and the tricky part is most people on a vegan diet are not eating healthy because there's the junk food
Right.
vegan diet out there. And
Right.
they'll go to vegan, they'll get sick, and then they'll switch back, and they
Right.
might still be sick, but it just gives it a bad name. But
Right.
so that's a tricky part. Now, the funny thing is there's something called the carnivore diet. I was going to ask what your opinion is about that, but from my experience, everyone has all these great testimonials about how great they feel, but people don't realize that a carnivore diet, it means you're like just eating meat. There's different forms of it actually, but most people that are doing this, they're giving up everything. They're giving up smoking, they're giving up potato chips, they're giving up candy, and they're just eating meat. So health begins when you eliminate things from your diet, not when you add. So, but they're asking for problems, in my opinion. What's your opinion about it?
Well, you know my opinion. I think it's nutty.
Yeah.
We're not carnivores. It's just, I don't know how anybody, I guess you have to not believe in evolution and not believe that we're closely related to the great apes. I don't know how anyone could believe that, uh, you know. Um,
Well, here's how. Here's how I'll tell you. If we didn't know much about smoking cigarettes, and somebody tells us, if you quit everything, if you don't eat and you just smoke cigarettes, you're gonna feel great. And you'd be like, I mean, that doesn't sound right. But for some reason, if you get talked into trying it and you do it and you are feeling great, you're convinced. It makes no sense, but you're feeling great. So you're like, wow. And then now you're promoting it, and it just gives me more clients later on in life because you're asking for a big problem.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just insane. I don't know what the difference is between the carnivore diet and the keto diet and the paleo diet, but the idea that we should just be eating dead animals and fat all day long, is preposterous.
Yeah, yeah. So what do you do now with your books you've written? Do you go out and promote them, or do you have a publisher that does that for you?
Well, I'm promoting them right now
Okay, tell
because
us a little about your books. What?
this is my book, Own Your Health, which is a book about how to take. Oh, you've left me.
No,
Um,
no, I'm here. I'm here. I just have,
okay.
yeah.
It's a book about how to take your health into your own hands, not to put your health in doctors' hands. Now, there's a role for doctors, but it should be limited to, of course, caring for injuries. And with your own health, it should be limited to um, understanding that you can't cede control of your health to other people. You have to make considered opinions yourself. You could ask a doctor for his or her opinion. You could ask them to do tests, but even there, you have to avoid over testing.
You're doing and just your books. Your books,
Mhm.
you got 16 different titles. And you're a guy that is clearly somebody that does the research in what you're talking about.
Right.
And it's people like you, and you're smart enough to know that if you eat animals, it's not good for the environment, it's not good for the animals, and it's not good for our own bodies.
Right.
I mean, it covers
Other
all.
than that, it's a brilliant
Yeah,
strategy.
yeah, exactly. It's and I could say it's not convenient, even though people use that excuse, because it's much more convenient to eat a carrot than it is to go look around town for a carrot cake. It's not the most convenient, I'll say that, and it's from my experience, maybe 30 years ago you would have said it's more tastier, but you can't say that these days because it's I make everything taste amazing with without animals. So
Yeah.
it can be done. So
Yeah.
that's great, man. And so you said you had a podcast. Tell us a little
Right.
about the podcast and tell us what your website is.
Yeah. The website is glenmerzer.com. It's one N in Glen and a Z in Merzer, GlenMerzer.com. The podcast is the Glen Merzer Show. I was initially going to call it Own Your Health, but it turned out there was already an Own Your Health podcast. So I let that go and just decided to name it after myself. One of my latest books is this one, Food is Climate, which makes the case that animal agriculture is, in fact, the leading cause of climate change, the leading cause of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. We're always told that it's the cause of climate change is the burning of fossil fuels. But I contend, and based a lot of my work on the research of Dr. Silas Rao, that the burning of fossil fuels is a factor, but it's a distant second to animal agriculture because um, even if we went completely green tomorrow and we stopped burning fossil fuels and we started flying in solar airplanes and all our electricity was clean and there was no burning of fossil fuels, the climate would continue heating up. Why is that? Because we keep having deforestation to accommodate animal agriculture, puts tons of carbon into the atmosphere. We have 1.5 billion methane factories in the world, which are called cows, which are belching methane 24 hours a day into the atmosphere. And you have all the other effects of animal agriculture from nitrous oxide and methane um, that are going to keep heating up the atmosphere. But if you end animal agriculture and you rewild all the grazing land, that's 40% of the land on the surface of the earth, and you draw down carbon dioxide. And that's the only way to reverse the climate crisis. So I made that case in Food is Climate and started the podcast as a way to help make that case and to interview people in the plant-based world.
What is your current diet like on a daily basis? Give us an example.
I tend to have for breakfast either a hot cereal like buckwheat or oatmeal, oat bran. I do eat bread. I know a lot of people don't think bread is healthy, but I find it hard to get through the day without some whole grain bread. And I eat a lot of fruits and a lot of vegetables. I eat a lot of tempeh, a little bit of tofu, beans, whole grains. And when I have sweets, I try to have something like dates, a whole fruit-based sweet.
Sure. And as a vegan, do you worry about or think about your essential fatty acids or not much?
I do sometimes put ground flax on my cereal. I do sometimes have avocado. Um, sometimes my wife makes a chia pudding. Um, So I think I'm getting enough of that.
Mhm.
I know that I probably can't go to the upper end of that or my cholesterol will go up.
Sure. Interesting. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to share with us. And I want everyone, I'm going to put the links below to his podcast and also Glen's website. Go there and check it out and check out his books if you like to read. Definitely get those. And it's just wonderful to have you on the show. You're a healthy young man and you're doing great. So, uh, do you want to say anything in closing?
Do I want to say anything in closing? Um, well, sometime let's talk again. Maybe I'll have you on my show and I'll learn more about how you stay raw for 30 years, because that for me would be a challenge. And I just hope that everybody out there, if you're not vegan now, please go vegan, because it's really the only way to save our planet. It's really the most important thing we can do for the planet. So those are my closing words.
Great, great. Well, thank you for being a guest. And everybody, thank you for watching. Put your comments and questions below. And until then, everybody have a great day and a great raw life.
Nature's wealth, good for your health. This is the Raw Life Health Show. Raw Life, brighten up your life.